Good afternoon. I'm Robert Langford with Operation Shoestring. I'd like to welcome you to Operation Shoestring's annual conversation about community. It's a community forum for addressing issues that are certainly relevant to our work at Shoestring, and that I think all of us are either thinking about or impacted by, but may not necessarily have the space to address those issues. Special thanks to our panelists and our moderator for today's conversation. You'll hear more about them in just a moment. Thanks to our donors and our volunteers who make our work possible at Operation Shoestring, as you have for 52 years since our founding in 1968. For a list of people and organizations making our work possible, go to our website at operationshoestring.org. And know that we'll have a wonderful new website revealed very soon too. And a most heartfelt thanks to our board and staff who make this work possible, and most important to all, to the kids and families that we serve in the heart of Jackson. So here's our agenda today. It's to have a conversation about parenting in the pandemic, about how we meet this moment. And then to have you, the viewing audience, send us questions and that we'll address some of those questions. We'd love for you to share this and like us on Facebook. We also want to have time at the end of the conversation for a little Q&A from you, the viewers. And then we'll wrap up with a hard stop by 1 o'clock. So we hope you'll stay with us for the whole time and participate in our annual conversation about community. So why parenting in the pandemic? Well, for more than half a century since our founding out of the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, we focused on children and their families, including, of course, their parents. And now in this crazy COVID world, the parents we serve, along with all parents, are navigating tremendous unforeseen challenges. So what are they? What are those challenges? Where are the silver linings, if there are any? And are those challenges different for parents in majority communities of color versus majority white communities? Our team at Shoestring responded immediately when the world turned upside down in March. For all of you, it was an incredibly unsettling moment, I'm sure. We immediately asked our parents what they needed when we suspended our in-person after-school and summer programs in the spring. What they told us was that they wanted food supports, and so we provided those in partnership with Jackson Public Schools and a number of funders. We also developed an amazing online learning program and platform, and we did that in response to what kids and families told us they needed and wanted. We also provided technology in the form of about 100 tablet computers to our families. And we, noting the extremely tough economic impact on our community, we've provided direct cash assistance to scores of families. In short, we at Operation Shoestring stayed true to our mission, but we completely retooled how we achieved it and how we worked and how we continue to work to support our kids and families. But in all of our retooling and all of the work that we've done to support children and families, we know that parents are shouldering a tremendous burden in trying to make it all work. It's tough. I've got a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old who want to be elsewhere and probably should be elsewhere, but they're here because of the pandemic. So today we'll explore some of those challenges that parents are dealing with as they affect Shoestring's community and as they affect all of you parents. And to guide us in this conversation, let me welcome Yamika Rushing. Yamika is an Operation Shoestring board member with a distinguished career in serving children, families, and communities like Operation Shoestrings. She's currently the Chief Strategy Officer with the National NAACP, and maybe most important and most relevant for today, she's also a parent. Thank you, Yamika.
Robert, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It is my greatest joy to be a part of the Operation Shoestring family as a board member. And indeed, I'm thrilled to host this important conversation with parents about the challenges, opportunities around navigating COVID-19 at home, at work, and at school. For those of you who are watching, either on Facebook or on Operation Shoestring's website, we want you to know that you are in for a treat. We have a great panel. I want to welcome Nicole Jones, Annie Elliott, and Letitia Johnson. Nicole Jones is a proud alumnus of the Jackson State University with a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in social work. She is a mother of 2 sons, and her philosophy is providing the best for her family and making the most of every opportunity in life. Annie Elliott is a priest in the Episcopal Church, and she currently serves as a school chaplain at St. Andrews. She's a recent graduate with a degree in marriage and family counseling, and she and her husband have 2 children who are in pre-K and first grade, Jack and Henry. Letitia Johnson is a lifelong resident of Mississippi. She received her undergraduate degree from Tougaloo College and a Juris Doctorate from Mississippi College School of Law. Letitia has 5 children and has been married to Derek Johnson for 25 years. Over 2 decades of raising children, one of her greatest joys has been watching her children discover things that they're passionate about. Letitia has a strong commitment to the Jackson community and serves on the Jackson Public School Board of Trustees, as well as an active member of the Jackson chapter of the Links Incorporated. Ladies, welcome. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Well, let's dig right in. I am the mother of 3, and just as the pandemic was happening, my 9-year-old really expressed her fears about the pandemic. Describe the moment that the reality of COVID-19 set in for you as a mother, as a parent. Letitia, let's start with you.
Let's see. I think it was when my 21-year-old who has asthma and he was at Brown. When I didn't know what Brown was going to do and when he was going to come home or how I was going to keep him safe. I think that was probably the worst moment. And that was at the very beginning in March.
What did you say to him, Letitia? What was that conversation like as you navigated it?
The first thing is what's the plan? What is Brown going to do? And once he told me that, things were happening so fast then that within a couple of days, he was coming home. And at that point, in hindsight, I should have been concerned about his travel. But we didn't know enough then. He, though, expressed to me in no uncertain terms that he was going to take every precaution to take care of himself because he wants to be here. So that gave me some solace that he was taking it seriously, because a lot of people in his age group weren't and haven't been. So it was an intense conversation, but I walked away from it feeling like he was going to take care of what I tell my children all the time, my most prized possession, which was him.
Mm-hmm. Annie, I know your children are a little bit younger. When did COVID really strike you as a parent, as a mother?
I think in the first week after spring break, I really thought that this was going to be more of a blip on the horizon of my children's lives. And pretty soon after that was when it really started to sink in that this was going to be the summer and into the fall. And I think I'm still even with that major moment of realization as a parent, there's still things catching me off guard as I think about the holidays and about the Christmas play that my first grader would normally be in. I don't think that work is actually complete yet. I'm still processing.
And Nicole, share your insights here.
Okay. Same with me. My youngest, he has asthma as well. So just pretty much just trying to figure out how to keep him safe was my main concern. And then me having to travel to Baton Rouge to get my son from college, where he goes to school at Southern. So just trying to make sure that they were safe, and we needed everything that we needed at home, just in case, things shut down, which they did. So just making sure that we had everything that we needed at home, food, supplies, and things of that nature.
All of you have mentioned safety, and I think it's been a concern for all of us. What have you and your kids talked about around keeping safe and staying safe, and how we all do that? Annie?
We've talked a lot about what we can do for ourselves and for others at home. And we've primarily talked about wearing masks and about staying home when we can. And I think those are the two things we've most often discussed with them and tried to have them understand why we're making the choices that we make every day, so that they feel included, at least in understanding, even if they aren't part of that decision process.
Letitia, same question for you. How do we keep everybody safe, and with those teenagers and young adults, how are you doing it? I know they're a little different.
Yeah, they definitely are. For the longest, we stayed at home. We were just here. So that was the first phase. The second phase was, again, having that conversation of, can I trust you with you? And we've had to get creative. Mask wearing is not an option. Keeping me informed about where you're going, who you're with. We do a lot of, I actually invited people over, and we would have, I think maybe it was for Nia's graduation. We had her friends come over outside. Everybody had on masks. We socially distanced. We did the best that we could to keep things as normal as possible, but we prioritize safety. And that was just, it's not an option. This is what's going to happen. And I haven't had a whole lot of pushback from them. That's been relatively easy. There's been a lot of boredom, but no pushback on the safety measures.
I know all of our kids are different ages. I want to get a little bit into the types of conversations that you're having with your kids. I've had, we have a college student, we have a middle school, an elementary school student, and one that's in high school, 11th grade. And the conversations with each of them was very different. Obviously, for the college student, it was tough because she was really making the decision whether she was going to stay home or go off into the world. And ultimately, everybody is anchored here at home. So tell us about some of the talks with your children. Nicole?
My oldest son, he was more inclined to just staying at home once the pandemic started in the beginning. Now he's wanting to get out a little bit more, but I still we talk and tell him, you have to wear the mask and wash your hands wherever you are, and so with Zion, he, with him having the asthma, he really didn't understand in the beginning. as to why he couldn't be with his friends. But I, had to just really just explain to him, with him having the asthma and the consequences, if he was to contract the virus. And so we've had those conversations, but it has gotten a little bit better. So we just still kind of, just take those precautions, wearing the mask and hand washing and everywhere we go.
Annie, can you share with us one of the conversations you've had with your pre-K and first graders? I know those were interesting. So tell us, how are you talking to them about this?
That's true. It's very interesting. So I think the conversation I'll share is the one that I had primarily with the first grader. And my husband and I talked to him about whether he would be going to school in person or not, because we were in a position where we could choose at St. Andrews which of those we wanted for our children. And so sitting him down and talking with him about, this is the decision we want to make. These are the reasons why for our health and for the community. And walking that line of getting his feedback, even though our decision was not going to change necessarily, but so we could guide our future conversations with him. And throughout this, the conversations have changed week to week from when we first started talking about hand washing a lot, and now we talk about that a little less, that we're always trying to impart the information that they need right now and not try to go too far into the future.
I imagine that is incredibly helpful because we're all navigating this thing day by day. I want to switch gears a little bit here and ask, what do you believe you need from your child's school and from our government leaders? Each of you have said a little bit about how the conversations you've had and how you're navigating at home. But beyond home, are your kids in school, and how are you? And if they're not, distance learning has become a real challenge for many of us. So let's talk a little bit about what you need from your child's school. Letitia?
Our experience has been really good. The schools that the two youngest two are in. I think the challenge really hasn't been the effectiveness of teachers or the computer programs or what have you. I just think that it's harder to keep the children interested and focused and engaged. And so I see my children suffering from sort of Zoom fatigue, and I guess we probably all are. And I don't know if the schools or anyone really has an answer for that right now. But right now, I think that's our biggest challenge.
Annie, what about you?
Well, right at the beginning of this pandemic, I started to identify the difficulty for us in meeting all of our children's needs, that we were used to having kind of a team of people at school and in church and in all kinds of ways helping with our children and their emotional needs and their physical needs. And it was all on us in that time, particularly during lockdown. And I think this year we continue to need that help meeting their needs from the school. And the school is doing that in a variety of different ways, but helping our kids feel connected, I think, is the most important thing to me, that even though they're at home, they're connected to school and they know what's going on at school, and that they don't feel lost in the midst of this right now.
I think that connection is so critical. We're certainly feeling the same thing. Our kids don't feel as connected as they used to, because they're not near their friends. They don't have the opportunities to engage. They're physically, present at home. Nicole, what do you say to this? What do you need from your child's school?
The biggest challenge that we had was is with the different platforms that the students are using. And so just having a connection with the teachers, and the teachers making sure that the students are actually understanding what it is that the objectives of what they're trying to teach them in the classroom.
I want to dig into that a bit. That's been particularly challenging. I have an 11th grader that's navigating a physics class.
Mm-hmm.
The class has a facilitator. There is no teacher. There's a wonderful computer program, but it's tough. It's tough. She doesn't know who her peers are, who else is in the class. She's just navigating it alone from her bedroom. And so we've had a couple of conversations with the school about resources and things that might help her navigate this a little bit better. What do you guys think about the types of resources that are needed that are different than what we needed pre-pandemic? What do you need for your child? Nicole?
Well, what resources do I need? Well, right, we have the internet, we have the computer that he's using. They provided him with the laptop at his school, and just pretty much, I guess the teachers maybe having extra time for them after school, or if, when they get out of school, to just be able to go to their office and talk to them, and get extra help.
Mm-hmm. Letitia, what are your thoughts on resources that you found that your kids need now that are maybe a little bit nuanced or different because of the pandemic?
Definitely support and sort of academic support. Sometimes I feel like they can miss opportunities to ask questions on the Zoom calls or what have you. And so that follow-up academic support. But I also feel, though, that a lot of their teachers have been very, very active in reaching out and making sure the students understand certain things, reaching out to parents. Some of this, I feel like I have more access to how their days flow a lot better than I did prior to pandemic. But that also leads to, I don't know, I think there's that whole balance of letting, your high schooler sort of navigate his way through things like you do when he gets on the bus in the morning and he makes it to the building, he navigates his way through the day. Right now, as a parent, I have more access to what his day looks like, when he's paying attention, when he's not. And so the balance of when to intervene and not, and just those academic supports that when he needs help, that he is, it's available.
This is such a tough time. It really has not been easy. And I think we're all thinking about how to navigate better, What do you think about our leaders, government leaders, our school leaders? Are they meeting the challenge, or is there more that could be done? I want to ask you, Annie. You have some little ones. Would you share?
I do. Our school, and I'm fair to mention I'm part of the school leadership team. So I'm not sure I can give an unbiased answer, but I think the school has really done its best to respond over the course of this as things have changed and shift the plan. And we are very lucky. Our children have 2 visits a week from teachers from school that come to our house to help them stay on track. And, I don't think any parent is going to agree with every decision made by any leader right now. But I've been able to see a true and honest hope to do what is best for the kids. And I've seen that in other schools and other school systems as well. That at the heart of this, everybody is doing their best. And I think as far as the educational system, I'm taking great comfort in that. More broadly, as far as the government, I wish that all of our policies reflected a little bit more or even a lot more in some cases, love of neighbor, and making sure that we are loving our neighbors right now in all kinds of ways. And so I think there is growth there.
Nicole, I want to ask you the same question. How are your kids faring in terms of school? And what are your thoughts around government leaders and school officials doing their part here? Are we there? What more can we do?
Well, at the school Zion goes to, I get calls like every 2 weeks from his teacher, just a call to make sure that we everything is going well with his learning. They and all of the staff at the school, they send out reminders, and they call and they get our input as well through email, getting our input on how we're feeling during the pandemic, and how we feel about the children returning back to school. So they're doing their part on communicating with us with that. Government officials, it could be a little bit better. I think when the governor took the mask mandate down, it kind of put a little damper back on the trying to get the cases down of the virus. So I think that they could do a little bit more in stepping up with trying to help around the city.
And Letitia, I know that you serve on the school board and you have a really unique perspective here as well. Can you kind of speak to how JPS has sort of handled some of these issues, and a little bit about your thinking on our leaders and how they're handling the pandemic?
Sure. Well, of course, because I was a part of the planning process, I might be a little biased, but I did feel like as the numbers went up, JPS made the right decision in pivoting to a virtual semester. I think it was the right decision. They took the opportunity from the spring and learned a lot. It's not a perfect situation, but I think under the circumstances, the district did its very best. So I'm proud of that. Overall, leadership in terms of this pandemic, I've been deeply disappointed in the amount of information the public has had, the inconsistencies in regulations across governmental entities, the lack of commitment to, fighting the virus back. This has been horrifying, scary for a parent, looking for leadership to set a standard to keep the entire community safe. And then it being behind or not being there at all. So.
No, I'll tell you that one of the things I think we struggle with sometime is what engagement is. There's a lot of informing. I've gotten a lot of emails and things like that, but I don't, as a parent, feel engaged, right? And I understand this is an incredibly difficult time. It's hard, and I think that many times we don't engage because we don't have the answers. But I welcome as a parent the opportunity to be heard and at least get it out there. Let's talk a little bit about parent engagement at the school level and how are you feeling about engagement? And I think I want to ask the question from the standpoint of what more do you need to feel engaged as a parent? What more do you feel like you need, Nicole?
What more do I need to feel engaged? I need more communication from the teachers. That would help me feel more engaged, because I'm able to see what he's doing, but not fully, because I have work. I have other responsibilities as well with work and everything. But just letting me know if he's on track, if he's turning in all of his work, and as well as me checking to make sure that he's doing his part as well. But just more communication from the teachers to let me know how everything is going with him.
Letitia, what are your thoughts on parent engagement? What more can we be doing to stay informed?
Again, I have an advantage because I'm on the board. And so I tend to, see things coming down the pipe. So I think I'm a pretty informed parent. Also, the schools that my children have attended have had Zooms on all about platforms and answering questions about what the process is like, or should be like for the kids. If there is any, so a lot of these things were somewhat delayed. So the kids would be working on one platform, and then maybe 2-3 weeks later, we would then have a Zoom about how it works and what the expectations are and those kinds of things. Some of that couldn't have been prevented, but if there was anything that I think we should be prepared for if this continues, is to do all of that on the front end, to lay out what the day looks like for kids, what the expectations are for kids, so that parents can keep up.
So after about 20 minutes or so, you're feeling like my girlfriends, right? I want to switch gears a bit and ask about you. I am missing my spa days, my manicures, my pedicures, even that little quiet moment where I could grab a book and kind of snuggle up with it. What are you doing to take care of yourselves? The world has gotten surprisingly busy. How are you dealing with the stress during these times, and what does your self-care routine look like? Let's start with you, Nicole.
My self-care routines, I would just go in my room and just read, and just reflect on things that's going on, and just kind of just take deep breaths, or either I'll go for a walk outside with the children. We just try to get keep some type of normalcy in our lives. So I'll go outside and sit on the porch, and just sit out there and just take all of the sunshine in.
That's good. That's good. Annie, what about you? How are you taking care of yourself as a mom with all your responsibilities?
We've also been going outside a lot more, and I have really enjoyed weeding during this pandemic, which I've never enjoyed before, and I'm not sure if I ever will again. But there is something very satisfying about taking a section of the yard and pulling out whatever's not supposed to be there, and then I'm done with that and can move on to something else. And the children know that if they try to talk to me while I'm weeding, they will probably end up having to weed. So they often find other things to do in the yard so that I have some quiet, which is also really helpful right now.
Yes, yes. Letitia, how are you taking care of yourself?
Gardening, walking in the evenings, cooking, this has been, as much as gone wrong, it's been good in terms of having everyone here and being able to spend time with, my older children especially. And so things that I probably wouldn't have gotten to on the daily basis, I make time for now. Like I've already watered my vegetable garden, which, I don't know, gives me a sense of control and a sense of peace.
It's helpful. So I want to take a commercial break here, and I want to ask folks to like us on Facebook and to certainly share this this incredible conversation. The next set of things I want to ask about really have to do with other parents and how you are talking in your networks and circles about coping mechanisms. We heard gardening, and we heard enjoying cooking, and even a little weeding in there. What advice do you have for parents about coping mechanisms during the challenges we're facing with the pandemic? What are you talking about in your friend circles? Nicole?
When I talk with my friends, I kind of get their advice as to what they're doing. And we just exchange change our thoughts and ideas. And my advice would be to just spend time with your kids as much as possible. Make this virtual learning as creative as possible when they're not on their Zoom meetings, when you're trying to just reiterate what they've learned that day. Just kind of make everything a little bit more creative, so it could be fun for them and so they can understand.
Coping mechanisms. What are you talking about in your friend circles, Letitia?
Pretty much all the same things, right? It's just that we may talk a little bit more. Like we complain about having to wake kids up and make sure they're on Zooms timely, and having to work in the home environment when your husband's in the next room on another Zoom call, and entertaining, high school kids and, middle school kids, something that you didn't have to do before. What we do is we just support each other and ensure each other that this won't last forever, and that we'll get it done.
Annie, same question.
A lot of the same things. I think reassurance is a huge part of the group text I'm in right now with friends, that our kids are going to be okay if they don't know how to spell all of their sight words, and sharing funny videos and things we see along the way. Trying to keep each other centered, and also acknowledging that I think last night the suggestion was just hide under the bed until after the full moon, which might be, I think, an impulse lots of folks have. So, keeping each other grounded and laughing and reassured that we are going to make it through this.
Love the hide under the bed. I'm going to try that. I might try that one this evening. We've noticed in our virtual after school program at Operation Shoestring that attendance is a little bit lower than expected in our virtual after school. How can Operation Shoestring better serve kids and families at this time? I'll start with you, Nicole.
You said, how can they better serve?
Yes.
Well, right now, I think they're doing a great job. They've supplied us with all of the things that we needed when Zion was taking summer camp through Operation Shoestring. They've been here for us. They've given us a tablet. They've provided him with a laptop to continue with his after school. There isn't many kids on the Zoom meetings in after school, but I don't know. I think they're doing an awesome job, so I'm not sure how to really answer that question.
Well, I want to invite the other ladies in. What do you guys think, Annie and Letitia, about how we might better serve? It's a difficult time because parents are navigating so much, and we certainly wanted to offer virtual after school as an option for parents. What more can we do to serve? Letitia?
So I think, those questions always start with what the needs are. The group that's attempting to be served, what are those needs? And whether those are something that the organization actually can address, because sometimes we have needs and they're not our need to fill. But I also think that Operation Shoestring has done a really good job in its collaboration with JPS and for the community which it's in. So I would say, and I'm sure they've already, done intensive surveys to see what their parents need, but that's where I would start.
Annie, what advice would you give Operation Shoestring as we seek to better serve children during the pandemic?
Well, I just read yesterday an article in the Atlantic about teens, particularly, and depression during the pandemic, and what factors are influencing how teenagers are feeling right now. And food insecurity was one of the large predictors of increased rates of depression and anxiety. And I know Operation Shoestring has always done things to help make sure the community has what they need. And as I am thinking about the next few months, that's really shoring me up, and I hope everyone, to make sure that kids have the food that they need to learn, and when all else fails, to think about that.
Thanks so much. I want to switch gears a bit, and I want to talk about your circles and your sort of relationships and how you feel connected to people during the pandemic. We talked about our kids being a little isolated, but in your world, as a mother and as a parent, how are you feeling about your connectivity to people? I'll start with you, Nicole.
I communicate with my friends and my family on the phone. I call my brother pretty much every day, and we'll talk for hours at a time. And I talk to my friends on the phone daily. So just keeping, just keeping in touch with everybody, just making sure that everybody is okay during this time.
Letitia, I'll ask you the same questions. Are you feeling connected, or are you feeling a little isolated?
I am not feeling isolated whatsoever at all. If anything, I'm feeling completely overwhelmed with interaction. I feel like this is one of those moments where where there used to be barriers, that there aren't any barriers anymore. That we're having Zoom calls for paint and sips. We're having, we've had Zoom calls for board meetings. We've had, just constantly in connection with people. But we've also had an opportunity to take a week away and rent a house on the beach and just, be a little disconnected. But this has been a real intense period for work and, everything else. I feel really connected.
Annie, what about you? Are you feeling connected, isolated? We're all kind of hunkering down at home, most of us. And so how are you feeling?
I do feel connected in lots of ways, certainly to my family, but also to friends. And I also have lots of opportunities to be on Zoom. And I do go to school and teach as well. I think the place where I'm feeling that disconnect is really as a priest, because I have not been able to preach in person to people except for 2 funerals since March. And I did not intend to be a televangelist, and this was not covered in seminary. And maintaining a relationship and feeling a connection when you're recording it and uploading later is just really hard.
So what advice do you guys have for women who are feeling isolated, feeling a little disconnected and overwhelmed? I've had a few conversations with some women who are experiencing the pandemic a little bit differently than what we've described. What advice would you have for those women? Letitia?
So this is probably a little easier for me because I'm an introvert and a homebody. So I'm in my favorite place, constantly. But for those people like my husband, who's an extrovert and needs that constant interaction, I would definitely say try to find it in every way that you possibly can. One thing that we've done is that we have another family who have had the same safety measures since the beginning that we have. And so we're still able to go on, double dates, their house, our house, plan future events like when we're going to go wine tasting together and those kinds of things. That helps bring back some normalcy. I also, walking the neighborhood and seeing people from a distance and being able to have, small talk while, people are gardening or are on their walk in the morning. I can only imagine that, I live in a house full of people, that if you're not in a house with, if you're in a home by yourself, that it's much, much more difficult. But I say, be creative. Those individuals that are like-minded and have had the same safety precautions, then, those are the people that you should be engaging with when you can.
Nicole, what are your thoughts about the woman who's feeling isolated, the mom who's not having that sort of connection experience that some of us are having? What's your advice for her?
Just reach out to family and friends, and just so you can talk to them to let them know how you're feeling. Because in the beginning, I was really stressed and had a lot of anxiety going on. But I just really just talked to my family and friends about everything. And it's gotten better. Um, but yeah, just staying connected to your family and friends, and if you need to, reach out to a professional, reach out and just get some extra help.
Annie, I would imagine as a priest that you have a really unique perspective on this question. The mom that is isolated, that is not connected right now. What do we want to share with her? If you're speaking with her, what are you saying?
I think the main thing I would share is that so many things have changed about our lives since March, but that some things have not. That the people that loved us and cared about us in March still do. And they may be overwhelmed themselves or isolated or withdrawn or just really busy. But that doesn't mean that folks don't care and want to reach out. So, of course, I would say go back in your phone to before this happened. See who you were texting with then and try to restart that. I also would suggest being honest with people you trust and saying, I'm hitting a wall here. What do you have to help? I did that recently with a friend, and she sent me some baby animal cams to watch. Very helpful. And I think that being honest and saying what you need is so important. And of course, reaching out if you have a community you haven't been able to see, if it's church or a club or a service organization, whatever groups you've been a part of in the past, contacting folks in those and seeing how you can reach out to them.
Letitia, I want to ask you, are there issues specific to Black or white populations that affect how families are handling the pandemic? What are your thoughts here?
So I've actually had this conversation with a white friend of mine, and where we probably didn't leave the house outside of necessities for at least 2 months. They felt relatively safe and they didn't have as much anxiety about the pandemic as we did. I think as time has gone on, we probably both have come to the middle of that, feeling like we, of course, feel like we have better controls, knowing that, if we take safety measures, then we can keep ourselves relatively safe. And I think his in particular anxiety levels probably have come up a little bit. But I definitely felt like in March and April, we were on, different ends of the spectrum. I also, and I think the data also would also show that. I think I just recently read an article about deaths in Mississippi sort of aligning racially with the populations. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm checking our time, and I'm going to get ready to hand it off to Robert. But I want one word, just one word. What is your greatest hope? Nicole?
My greatest hope is that we all will have a better year next year. That this pandemic sort of it really just dies down after a certain time, and everybody can get back to some type of normalcy next year.
All right, Annie. Nicole said normalcy. What is your greatest hope?
I think that we'll come through this together.
Normalcy together. Letitia, your greatest hope?
Endurance, that we're able to endure what it is that we must do in order to get back to our normal lives.
Endurance. Well, ladies, we are inspired and moved by each of you. You are awesome. You're so awesome. And just thank you so much for engaging in this conversation that's so important to mothers and fathers as we try and navigate this pandemic. Thank you again for your insights, and I've enjoyed hosting each of you. I want to turn it over to Robert to close us out. I think he has a few things to share, and there he is. Robert?
First of all, just thank you, Nicole and Annie and Letitia and Yamika, a big, giant, real express virtually. Thanks to all of you, certainly from Operation Shoestring, but also from all the people who were able to participate today. So without kind of going over too much, I do want to we want to end in a hopeful place. I think our work and our lives as human beings need to push towards making real the things that we hope for and that we yearn for, right? Keeping our eyes on the prize. So we all hope for and yearn for normalcy, togetherness, and endurance. And I think we won't get to where we need to be without those. So thank you all for lifting those up as things that you hope for. And I would say that we need, and that so many folks are demonstrating right now out of necessity. Just 3 nuggets that are a little bit less serious. Zoom fatigue is real, right? Please consider hiding under the bed until at least the full moon has passed. Sometimes at my house, I feel like I want to go until next year, or maybe that's 2022 now. And sort of riffing off of something Letitia suggested, but it manifests itself in my mind this way. This is an introvert's Super Bowl. So, and for so many other folks, as we talked about, for whom it's not their Super Bowl, this is really tough. It's really tough. So I want to thank you all for the care and consideration you gave of the questions and the conversation. Deeply grateful for that. Deeply grateful for the work that you do in your own spaces with your own families and in your own professions and in the community. It's hugely important, the example that you provide. And I want to plug tomorrow's conversation about community, which is part 2. This is the 2-part series. Vaughn Gordon from the William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation will be facilitating a conversation with 4 young people, youth voices in this moment of our 2020 civil rights movement, and I think against the backdrop of the pandemic as well. So same time, noon to 1 o'clock tomorrow. Find us on Facebook at Operation Shoestrings Facebook page or at operationshoestring.org. Until then, thank you and have a great day.